Good afternoon. Today's meeting is basically intended to give you our summary of our trip for the past week. We came in wanting to listen, wanting to learn, and hear all the ideas, thoughts, issues that are facing the Maldivian sports system. And we received a lot of good information. The hospitality received and the welcoming nature by all groups that we met with was not surprising, but was very appreciated. And both Matt and myself were really pleased at the engagement that we were able to get with all of the groups that we met with. And so the open and honest dialogue that we had, as well as the sharing of ideas, was terrific. Really opened our eyes, gave us some insight to ideas that we really wanted to explore. And so tonight, I'm going to give you the kind of the overview of what areas we think are the priorities, especially given that the president and the minister have a very tight timeline before a plan gets put in place. So we will be working to get a lot of detail put together on the various areas, but we really identified 6 main areas that we think should be focused initially, and some of them are crossover and bleed into one another, because the one that I think is key, and we heard from so many groups, is the improvement of communications, the ability to share information more readily. Our trip up north, we got a general sense that people feel like they're out of the loop. They don't know what's going on, and they really want to be involved. And so really one of the key areas we thought is the creation of a communications plan, utilizing a lot of technology that's out there already, but just having someone that's committed to making sure that when a decision's made or something happens here, everybody knows about it. And that's at all levels, because the one area and the one group that I think really felt disenfranchised were the schools. The schools feel like they're left out of the sport process. Yet, if you look at the system, they are the ones that are introducing sport and activity to young kids, and then they enter the pipeline. So they're a key element to the whole process, yet they feel like they are out of the loop. So I really do think creating that master plan for communications and making sure that everyone is being communicated to, and there are various ways to do it. Matt and I are already brainstorming on some ideas on what maybe we introduce some podcasts to the group so that we can share information and it can be readily available, whether it be on the Olympic Committee website, or we create yet a separate portal that is for information flow for sport, and that all key constituents and stakeholders can have access to it. So the communications kind of just goes throughout the entire every pillar, because without it, a lot isn't happening. So the one area that we did identify regarding education and development was for the sport coaches, for the sports administrators, and for officials, because we kept hearing from people saying, we don't have enough officials. We don't have enough people for our sport in the officiating. And so that's a key area for development. Even attending some of the basketball tournament, 2 out of the 3 officials were from out of the Maldives. And so I think, again, it's important for a sustained system that you look at ways in which you are you're developing all the necessary elements for the sport, and officials are a key. The idea that Matt has regarding the National ICECP program, which is a coaching certification program. He does the one for Olympic Solidarity that now he is a graduate of, and several other graduates that we met with while we were here who are giving back and still working in the sport system here in the Maldives, but doing one on a national level and being able to certify and train your coaches. And that, again, resonates really loud because a lot of the schools feel like they have a shortage of coaches. And without trained personnel, are they really getting the most out of sport in their school? And so having a system in which you can train not only the NSA coaches, but also the school coaches, the academy coaches, the club coaches, and raise the level, raise the quality of coaching in the country is a good thing. It's a great thing. And you will see the benefits of that and see the change that you can have when you have that level of improvement. The other area that I think is key and should not be taken the wrong way, it always is, but NSA administration and leadership. It's absolutely important that if you're training the coaches to be great, but they're going to go back to an NSA that just strives for mediocrity, then you're going to have a conflict. And the coach is going to want to leave, not going to be happy. So at the same time that you're developing and training the coaches, you have to have an NSA leadership development program as well. It's so critical because those are the people that are making very important decisions about their sport in this country. And if they aren't the best that they can be, then you're missing out as well. So we had something similar when I worked with Singapore, where we identified that there was certainly a need to raise the level of NSA leadership, raise the level of that in order for there to be a significant change. Along those lines and during that training, some of the areas that I think is key is that to encourage and international federation interactions and relationships. Those are people that have incredible resources, money, but also the ability to bring events, to bring coaching programs, to bring athletes for exchanges. The international federations are a key element in the whole process. And if you have NSAs that are not nurturing that relationship on the international level, they're missing out. And that's part of the areas that we really identified a greater need and support for. Sometimes you can't expect people to be able to do it on their own, and they need some facilitation, they need some help along the way. And that might be just simply making an introduction, meeting with the IF, asking the IF to come down and come to your area. You'll have no problem with invitations of getting people to say yes to the Maldives. I can guarantee you that this is a spot that when they hear that, they'll say, I'll find a way to get there. I will be there. The other area that we really think is necessary, and again, we'll put some more thought to it and continue to meet. I should say that our plan is that while we're gone, we still plan to be here. We really want to set up regular Zoom meetings to still continue to talk with key stakeholders. We've got a long way to go to build out all of these things that I'm talking about. Matt and I shouldn't be building this out. We're building it out with the key stakeholders here in the Maldives so that their ideas are heard, their thoughts, and we're able to tap into the knowledge that's here. But one of the areas is to develop and host regular meetings between the NSA and their coaches. We really have heard there seems to be a disconnect there. And again, I'm going to say it's not just the NSA coaches. It's coaches that are doing this at the grassroots level, in the schools, the clubs, the academies. And those can be a combination of virtual or in person. Most of them can be virtual and still raise the level of coaching. I know that from a fact. I teach at the University of Delaware, yet I've never been on their campus. I teach virtually. That's all my students know me as this guy on the screen. They don't know that I actually have a lower body or anything else like that. But you can educate through virtual. And I think, again, on the coaching side of things, you want a combination, because some skills and things like that are far better learned with in-person meetings and in-person interaction and workshops, but a lot of it can be done virtually. We talked earlier when we were talking about the communication, but the development of a portal where we can have information shared at all levels. And again, trying to emphasize this communication piece, because when it isn't working, then the system isn't working and causes people to be disenfranchised, cause people to say they're not working with me, they don't care about me. It's a way of building up the relationship, and it's a way of incorporating and including so many more people. So that portal can be both information, just simple. We heard the other day, simple calendar, the sport calendar. So many of them are confused as they don't even know what their sport calendar is. And that type of information on a portal that's readily available to the coaches, the various councils, all of those would be invaluable. The NSAs. So again, as well as a portal that has those educational programs on there. Matt and I are going to experiment with some courses that we just do. They're real basic courses, and we're going to send it along to kind of start the process and experiment with some online education programs, both from the coaching and administrator standpoint. So we hope people will explore that, but we be able to build a library out of educational programs that people can go in and have readily available. And when someone comes on and is going to be an NSA leader, that they have access to it and can readily be able to utilize that, at least on the basics of that area. And then again, that use of that portal just raises the level of communication that you have with all your key stakeholders. The hosting of events, we talked about that when we were together the last time. We still think it's important. Maybe not world championships for your sport, but there are so many other events that are available around the world. And I still believe that meetings are a huge one that helps you establish so many good relationships with either the IF or the IOC or you know, even other NOCs, exchanges with other NOCs that want to come here and train for a period of time, or simple sport clubs that would love to come and have a training experience here in the Maldives. So putting together a strategic plan for what events do we want. Let's target them. Let's put an action plan together on how we go about bidding on those. More importantly, about how we go about winning the bid for those. Bidding's nice, but the whole purpose of it is to win the bid. So the idea behind it is put an action plan in place, but don't go for every event that's out there. Some of them you don't want. I'm just here to tell you. Some of them, the reason they'd be available to you is because nobody else wants them, or they don't pay their bills. Don't bring those guys. Just telling you. Take the ones that you think will help your sports system. Bring them in here. Don't just take every meeting that you can take, but instead be strategic in who you're going after and who you want to be here. Because their inclusion, that relationship could lead to the Maldivian sports system improving. That's really what the whole purpose is. Not just to hold a meeting, not just to have people come. Now, it's nice, and one of the things that this bleeds into a little bit of where we think there's a lot of synergy. The tourism that can come from these types of meetings, these type of competitions, are incredible. It really helps the revenue and bringing people in. So that partnership is a key one. One of the ones that we think that sport tourism is a big, big business around the world. And so these events and meetings and such always should be, as I said, should be targeted with what's the plan on what are we going to utilize that for. And an example being, okay, let's go host the Indian Ocean Island Games. Why do we want to do that? Because we can create an infrastructure of facilities that are a legacy to that hosting of that event. And who's going to benefit from those facilities? The Maldivian athletes and coaches, because they will be left behind after you host that event. That's the type of strategic thinking on, okay, how do we benefit from that? How do we come away from this better because we hosted this event? So many countries and clients that we deal with rush out and start hosting events, but there's just no plan for why. How are we better off after we host it? And that's why it has to be incorporated into your plan, your thinking. Why are we doing this? And if you can't answer the question why, then it may not be something you want to do. You really have to have the reason and the purpose behind it. But I really do think it is a way for you to raise the level of facility quality when hosting that event. And so, and then again, going back to a plan, but what's the plan for utilization of those facilities? Don't just build them and expect that they'll get utilized. Have a utilization plan. Who's going to utilize this, and how are we going to maintain it and keep it as a good quality facility? Next up on the pillars, the development of a structure that has oversight for sport. So again, the one thing that we felt was that there are all of these different bodies within sport doing things, but there really is no structure in place that they all kind of report and it's streamlined. So efforts seem to be going in one direction over here, efforts over here are going in another direction, and instead really looking at a sports structure that allows for more streamlined and efficiency in all that's being done within it. And I'll try and explain it a little better. But example, and I referenced it earlier, the schools are the key to grassroots participation in sport. They've got them. They're there. You know, sports clubs, they've got to recruit them to come in. But in school, they're in attendance. Therefore, let's take advantage of that and really introduce them to participation of all sports. And at a young age, it's not about training them how to set a volleyball or it's just getting them active, getting them moving, getting them to understand that fitness is important at a young age. And so in the schools, it doesn't have to be high-level competition. However, it has to be something other than someone rolling a few balls out on a field and say, go play. There needs to be more than that. And so this whole idea behind a grassroots program leading up to elite level at the NSA level, but there's a whole pathway and there is a whole pipeline in between there. And the more seamless that pipeline is, the more successful it is. And when I say seamless, and I referenced earlier, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that. Seamless is that everybody's working towards the common goal. That when those athletes come into the pipeline, they are being taught skills. They are developing along a pathway that is consistent regardless of where they're at in the country, regardless of what island they're at. They are on the long-term athlete development program, and that's the pathway they're following. It sounds easy. It's very challenging because you've got to bring all of those constituents, all those stakeholders into the same room and get everybody to buy in. This is our pathway. This is the system we're going to use. And again, I think it's possible based on the conversations that we had. I think that a lot of your schools, academies, clubs are dying for the opportunity to be a part of that. They just don't feel like they've been invited into the room yet. And so really going out there and building those relationships with some programming, with some education, with some communication will go a long way towards them feeling that they are a part of the system rather than on the outside looking in. The other, and again, this is not a unique idea because I understand it's already taken place, but strengthening sport in school with a national fitness program of some sort, and getting it to be consistent across the school system on what the measurements are, what are, and being able to have a baseline comparison across the entire country. But a national fitness program, whether it be Matt referencing the program that he introduced in Jordan, or what used to take place in the U.S. on the President's Council of Physical Fitness, whether it's Fit Maldives, I think that's the term I heard that is being, and I love the name. It's exactly what it is. It's a fitness program to try and raise the fitness level of your population. Singapore is active SG. I think that's what they've bounced around with different ideas, but I think now it's active SG. Their whole purpose behind that was the Ministry of Health was concerned about the obesity, diabetes, and literally the health of their youth and their entire population. But at the youth level, it was dangerously high. And then they weren't living as long because of that fitness level being bad, the disease and health complications that go along with it. So a lot of why they introduced all of that was not because they wanted better sport, but because the government wanted a fitter population. They wanted a healthier population. And so that's one of the areas that I think the schools could be instrumental in being a part of. Thank you. Could be a part of, because again, you have a captive audience, and it's at that age that they're they're influenced by what they're exposed to. That's education. But if they are introduced to fitness and introduced to sport at these school age levels, that's when you can capture them. That's when you can get them excited about what they're doing. So again, I really feel like that national fitness program can go a long way towards solving the issue of getting youth involved and making the schools feel important in the process. The schools will feel like we are a part of this system, and they don't feel that way now. They struggle with what their role is, and I think we can improve that. And then this concept of regional sports structure, I think we feel as though it may go a long way towards solving some of the problems, that having a structure in place that it sends a message that we're supporting you on the regional level rather than it's all being centralized out of Male, but no, we have a regional structure and they're responsible for building up that region, and that there's support going, and that there's someone that they can talk to that understands the region, and really feeling more ownership to their area than the centralized system. So we're going to play around with that, but we really like that regional concept. We think that it has a lot of merit based on what we heard. The sport performance services, the High Performance Center, we talked about that. A lot of people don't know what it is. When we were out there discussing with them, a lot of them just looked at us like, what are you talking about? And Matt and I both concluded maybe the first step in that whole thing, it would be an education awareness. Teaching them what performance services are, teaching them what it could do for them and their athletes, but also making the athletes aware of what it is. Building something that nobody understands is probably a precursor to having a building that never gets used because they're afraid of it. Coaches are afraid of it. Athletes are afraid of it, and so you'll have a bunch of people standing around wondering if somebody forgot to unlock the door on why it's not getting utilized. So we feel in this area, based on where everything's at right now, it makes more sense to devote some time on educating about performance services and then implementing some of them rather than to jump into it and build a high performance center, institute, whatever, and nobody utilize it. That would be unfortunate. But I think in the long-term plan, when you're talking about a 20-year plan, a high performance center certainly is down the road relatively soon. It just maybe isn't ready today. So, but I do think educating the coaches on the value of many of those, because one of the things that sport is rapidly catching up with now is the concept of recovery. That there are recovery centers that athletes go to rather than to wait until they're injured and then you start rehabbing them. It's called prehabbing. And the idea is if you're getting the athlete to recover after a tough bout of exercise, the likelihood of them getting injured because of that is reduced, and therefore you won't lose them to training, won't lose them to competition because of an injury, but instead you've prevented it. And so those are the type of ideas that that I think we are thinking about in regards to the performance services area. We also think that in some cases there are some services you could start with immediately. Nutrition's one of them. Nutrition is just a general one, but I think it's very important that athletes and coaches know how valuable nutrition is if they're expecting the athletes to perform well. And so those are the type of areas that you could start on immediately because it has such an impact. I think biomechanical video analysis, let's look at it and make sure that it's going to be utilized before we have, you know, a studio somewhere that somebody's waiting for someone to come in and begging them to come in so he can analyze their performance. I think too that as we go along, you have existing facilities that we've seen that could accommodate some type of performance services center in them. It's maybe going to involve retrofitting some of the existing structure, but you don't have to rush out and build a new building. There are opportunities within existing structures, and I think that goes a long way towards being able to introduce it at a lower cost than trying to construct everything from the ground up. And as I said before, I think too the emphasis being on educating what performance services are, what they can be, and what they can do for you. Those are key elements. I will tell you, and when I started in the area, when I was the chief of sport at the U.S. Olympic Committee, I had a very aggressive performance services model. I had a lot of sports that weren't utilizing any of those services. So unfortunately for them, I could just walk out my office door because they were all training at the training center right there. So I would walk right up to our coaches and say, why aren't you using sports science? Why aren't you using sports medicine? And most times, I will tell you, it was because the coach didn't understand what it was and they didn't want to lose that type of control. They thought that if they allowed somebody else to talk to them about this and they didn't understand what it was, they would lose their power over the athlete, their authority. And so I was like, well, that's true, but you shouldn't prevent the athlete from pursuing excellence. What you should do is you should learn what these are and then be able to put it into your coaching system and your training program. So I think that's a key element too as we go through here. And we're talking about the National ICECP program. That certainly covers a lot of what that educational component for your coaches. So they will already be getting exposed to the potential, whether they know it or not, of these types of things. You may trick them into the fact that they now are much more knowledgeable on sports science and sports medicine. And then finally, the topic, and again, the creation of a long-term athlete development system here. I think we heard over and over again how there's a little bit of frustration that when your administrations change in the political system, that there seems to be a diversion in another direction, potentially on sport. And it is this part of the project that both Matt and I are absolutely thrilled about, is that you have the president of the country wanting to put together a long-term plan in every area. Most times, I'm just going to tell you from my own experience with other clients, long-term sometimes is 6 months to politicians. No offense, Minister. But long-term to them is like, to hear that somebody wants to put together a 20-year plan and include sport in it is like music to my ears, because athlete development takes time. There's no button you get to push and it automatically happens, and now all of a sudden we're the greatest sporting nation in the world. So that type of commitment is rare. And the fact that you here in the Maldives have this opportunity because of the vision of your president, and because that he's pushing it down into all the different areas, is an excellent opportunity to establish this new ecosystem of sport that I think will pay dividends well into while I'm still on this side of the dirt. So I think it will be something that you can be proud of. I think it's something that will show that the Maldives is a sport country. And so I think, again, lots to do in that. I think there's lots to flush out in it. All of these kind of feed into that concept of a long-term athlete development. It's while I list the 6 pillars, as I said from the onset, from the beginning, they all are intertwined. And if you're doing it right, they really should be. You shouldn't have standalone things that are happening. As I said before, we're hosting this event. Why? Because we're going to do this, this, and this. We're hosting this meeting. Why? Because we want to establish a stronger relationship with that international federation. Those are all purposes, and that's the beauty about having a long-term plan, is you can put that together and then devise action plans to make it reality. And so I encourage that. I'm excited about it. And Matt and I have a lot of work to do to be able to flush this out in great detail. But we're still going to come to you. We're still going to come to all the stakeholders, because this isn't going to be Matt's and Steve's plan. That's not good. It's going to be the Maldivian sports system plan. And that's the key, is that we want ownership by you and all of your stakeholders, because that's what makes that system powerful. Trying to, as Matt said before, trying to just roll something out and say, well, it works over in this country, make it work here, is not a recipe for success. It's a recipe for disaster. So we're excited to keep working on this. Nothing over the last 7-8 days made me feel like I made a mistake coming here. I'm more positive about what changes we could make going into the future now than I was when I landed last Wednesday. And I think it's now a little bit daunting, because Matt and I have to come up with some great ideas in order to make this a reality, and share those with you, and get buy-in from all of the key stakeholders. So I'll stop there, partly because I'm just tired of talking, but also to take any questions, comments that you might have.
Well, Steve, thank you very much. I think you have passed a lot of information, though it's a summary of what you have received in the last week. I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank all the, especially the CPTM teams, Steve and Matt, and of course, the stakeholders who contributed to this work, and also the veterans, legends who had been in this system for so many years. They have come up, they have discussed, and they have raised their questions, exchanged a lot of information. This includes the NSAs as well, and of course the relevant ministries, especially Ministry of Education, and all those whom we met. I would like to thank them all, and me too, and on behalf of the ministry, we were very much delighted, very much happy. We are very much satisfied over the work we have done in the last week. This may not be a question, but just a doubt perhaps to be cleared. The system that you have just discussed, because many of the people whom I met in the recent past they talk about the regional entities or the regional hubs which may come up at the end of this work. I'm just wondering, how would it be the feeding system? How, because recently, last 2 weeks, I have been traveling across the country. A lot of people I met, they said, this guy is an extraordinary football player, but I'm pretty much sure that he should be playing. If they all knew about him, he should be in the national team right now. But unfortunately, nobody knew that this particular athlete is so talented. So I'm just wondering how this feeding system will be at the end of the day, just to give those opportunities to the potential athletes across the country. Thank you.
It's an excellent question. And again, looking at it, and as Matt and I were sitting down and trying to figure out the concept, because we think the concept makes sense, is that if by putting someone or a team responsible for that regional hub, they really become your talent ideas for that regional hub. And again, the value of that regional feeder system will be that it incorporates into a national system. So that means that you'll either have to be having camps, clinics, competitions that bring those regional talented individuals together and be able to then compete against the very best across the entire country. And so that, to me, is the value of the regional, is that they get identified, they're able to be picked, and you have these select camps that they get to go to. Whereas if you don't have that, it might all be by chance that someone does get picked up by their NSA to go to a camp that actually lets them see their potential. And so I think the regional hubs really serve as the spoke of the tire and feed the system. And again, the key is, what I will tell you is, you have so many, you referenced these individuals that have been a part of the Maldivian sports system that are heroes and past champions and such. They all want to give back. I mean, we've met with so many of them throughout, and what a great feeling, and tapping into them to be able to either go back to the regional area that they came from and they rose to a level of a national individual, a national sport hero. And what a great champion to take back and have them be in charge of their regional hub. And so those are some of the ideas that we have, but it certainly has to be structured. The last thing you want to do is create these regional hubs as a structure where then they isolate everybody from the other regional hubs, and it's like what did we do there? We might as well just kept the old system. Instead, it has to be the regional hubs have to drive traffic to the national competition. And the other part that I would say with the regional hubs that Matt and I talked about is that in that context, the regional hub team could be very involved in making sure it's all inclusive, schools, clubs, academies, NSA, that they're ensuring that that dialogue's going on, that those are all working together. And again, the one thing I think really needs some work is these sport calendars, because they seem to be out of control. And that's quite frightening, because I'm like, okay, here's a calendar, here's a calendar, here's a calendar, and everybody has their own calendar, and none of them have been integrated together. And so I think that all that does is create a lot of conflict, and ultimately somebody having to move what they were planning on an event because there's 4 other events on that same weekend that they planned. But that's where I think the regional hubs are of value, because then they can coordinate a lot of that information flow, whether it be between the Atoll Council, the Island Council, working with all of them to coordinate and have a master calendar that makes sense. I hope that answered the question. Any other comments?
Thank you, Steve, for the well-informative, gathered information that you have collected over the past couple of days. Very important points noted, which we are also very much aware, like the awareness. We already have a sports channel, designated government sports channel, but maybe it's not that viewers are maybe less, but it does. There is the channel is there, but maybe not utilized that much. And Olympic Committee did highlight that they do have sessions. Right? How often? Yeah. Yeah, so they were doing it weekly. So, I mean, here and there is access to sports news, but portal would bring all of this together. And the other point that you highlighted was the National Association governance, how well they operate at the top level, how much they should be able to promote good governance. As part of what we have noticed is that some of the national levels are being, how to say this, some of them are active very well, and they do things like very innovative ideas, like the very small associations. I mean, I'm not small, but recently national status given associations, and they are having international competitions here. Just last year we had 3, if I'm not mistaken. Bodybuilding international was there. Pool billiard international competition was there, as well as surfing and bodyboarding as well. So a lot of tourism revenue would have been generated through all of these 4 international competitions. But there are other associations who lag behind, who has been there for maybe more than 15 years, but due to maybe their head or the people who are managing, maybe they don't have that much of knowledge how they should affiliate with or tap into funding and solely depend for funding purposes on the local community, and they're not able to bring the sport to the level that we want. So we want all of the NSS to be the same level. So grooming the top level of people who are handling association is very important. And we do have MNIS, that is Maldives National Institute of Sports. Maybe that could be one area who could have courses which are also MQL level. So it's qualification that is recognized by the local community, so that people at least at the top 3 who are top 3 could have, or the Secretary General could have such a qualification, so that could run the association better. So just thinking out loud. And the next thing that you mentioned was about these school sports, which also we have been thinking and talking, but with that plan in place, I see that happening here. So very good initiatives highlighted just now. So thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you. You don't have to compliment me. We haven't done anything yet. But what I will say is that a lot of what we've said, there are existing things already in place. They're just not being fully utilized potentially. So we don't have to recreate the wheel. If it's already round, we got a good start. And so it's a matter of taking it and then fully utilizing it. And the beauty about the minister's plan is that it can be in there and it can be communicated to everybody. And then all of a sudden somebody goes, well, why don't we use the sport channel? Nobody thought of that. So again, why don't we fully utilize some of the existing facilities and the Institute to do some of this certification? A lot of it's already there. It's just kind of rounding it up and getting it to be streamlined and efficient and effective rather than all of these things that are out there that are functioning, but they're not functioning together. And so I think there's far more strength in bringing them all together under one umbrella and working for a common cause.
Which was done, and it came out from that report that Maldivians are very socially engaged on the social media, and everybody has majority of locals have a high-tech phone like an iPhone or maybe Samsung. So it's just that if we could tap into the social media area, which will dissipate information more readily to people who are not able to get it right now. So
I absolutely agree. I'm not a fan of social media because it's so time consuming. It's a time suck. You know, if you do it right, you're just spending so much time. But if you want to get to the youth, there's the portal right there. They'll believe anything on this. Anything that comes from there, no. But anything that comes and is broadcast on their phone, then they take it as, and that's where the Fit Maldives concept and having it app-based and having it be a part and being able to advertise that via social media, I think you'll just watch it. It'll go viral, as they say. You know, that it will have a power of its own because of the fact that you're bringing it to their platform. You're tapping into what they are interested in versus just introducing it at the school. The teachers, they're like closing their ears sometimes when the teachers are talking, and so coming up with those creative solutions. And I do think social media is here to stay. It's been here a while too. But I think that utilizing it to accomplish your goals rather than say, oh, well, this is a distraction for us, or find a way to utilize it. It's a brilliant solution to being able to target an audience, and it's generally a pretty young audience. So, because, yeah, I'm following the minister now, but it's like we got, you know, it was a major coup that he actually signed up for Instagram right there. That way he said, you've got to sign up for Instagram. I pity his wife because he's probably going to be asking her and his daughter a lot of questions about, how do I do this? What does this mean? But yeah, and again, I think it is an avenue that you really want to incorporate. It is very powerful. I may have bored you to death.
Want to. Yes, good evening. Thank you, Minister, for inviting me, having me here. Let me give you a small background of myself. I've been in the education system for 25 years, and right now I'm in the education ministry. So just Yeah, now I'm in the sports council, so that is how I landed here, I believe, yeah. So just listening to you, Steve, I think you have done an excellent job in, painting. Like hearing you, I can see like the gaps that you have analyzed in your work here in the few days. It's just like I can see like what you're talking about is like there's no communication. There's going to be more intervention between the associations, the schools, the health ministry, perhaps, when you think of the students, like our well-being and mental well-being. So I think you've done a good job, and I think if we can implement it for the next 20 years, as the president has said, his vision, is to create an athlete over the years. It's just like overnight, we cannot create athletes who can just go for, and achieve high success. So when we talk about schools, since I've been in the schools for a very long time in Mali, I think we have resources, and it's our mindset, like the attitude that we take these resources and how and what we do about it every day, So I find even in many of the schools, they have, like in Mali, like 95% of the schools, they have turf grounds. But how well is it used? The sports supervisors, are they skilled enough, like professional developments are given? I think one of the reasons why the sports supervisors, they are very much underpaid. So they have their own agendas. Perhaps I'm not sure whether you have met the sports supervisors, but then I think there is a big gap between that, and they can do a very good job in training the students and changing the mindset of students. So yeah, we have resources, and of course, sky is the limit, when we talk about resources. So with the resources, with what we have, I think we can do a good job even within the schools to, make our students fit. In some of the schools, sports activities, when we look when we have a look at how the children are mingling with each other, you can see they prefer to, sit at the table with their phones or some iPad. I mean, Steve, if you have, just walked around in the neighborhoods, you would realize that many from the baby stage to, all the way up, everybody has some kind of, internet facility. And our children are very much engaged in games, and especially, the boys, especially the boys, are more into the gaming and, social media. So it's very hard to, like engage them mentally, because, they are like they're sleep deprived and nutritious values. So a lot of factors that you have mentioned, I think, is a good analysis of what is actually held around. And I think we are very grateful for you and met your team to, and I think if we can implement the strategies, as you have said, and, have long-term visionary goals to establish, that would be a very good sign for our, Maldives, fit Maldives. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. One thing that I want to touch on, because you just reminded me of it, the work we did in Singapore was really important. We built the foundation and such. We got very lucky that we had a very talented young swimmer, Joseph Schooling, and we invested in getting him very good coaching, and we invested in making sure that he had every opportunity to develop, and he went and won a gold medal, first gold medal ever for the country. The impact it had on young children wanting to be athletes, swimmers in particular, because he happened to be a swimmer, was monumental. All of a sudden, they believed they could do that. Prior to that, they didn't believe. And so when we talk about utilizing social media, you have champions that go to the Indian Island Ocean Games. You have champions South Asian Games. Let's create a communication system and plan where we really promote via Instagram, via, this is going to date me, Facebook, but TikTok, whatever platform, because getting the youth to see and believe is critical, that they actually then now want to do that. The last thing I wanted that you touched on is, unfortunately, in some cases, I say unfortunately, esports is I think it's now, what did they say? It's an $8 billion business now worldwide, esports. So all these kids that are sitting on these, playing these games, may go to the Olympics someday for playing games. Scares me, because I don't see them really breaking a sweat much, you know, or getting fit sitting on their couch playing those games. But it has now become such a strong industry, and I've witnessed, and again, it's a little a tangent, but these e-sport competitions that take place bring so many people in. Might be an event that you want to do, not from a sport standpoint necessarily, but from tourism, because they take these arenas and they fill them up, and then all the resorts and hotels are filled with people because they come from all over. And it's an incredible industry. It scares me that it's so popular, because I'm still the old guy of the mindset that I'd rather see young kids throwing balls around rather than sitting on their phones. But and I have experienced everybody owning one of these, because when you walk on the sidewalks here, you have to be careful. No one's looking up. They're all looking at their phones doing this, and they're going to run right into you. So and I even see people riding those scooters, looking at these things and doing, and I'm like, this is insane. You know, number one, your scooters are insane. I'm just going to tell you. It scares me. But it became a thrill thing then at night when we would drive around in the scooters, because I really don't know what the rules of engagement are, you know. Okay, that might be my problem. I was trying to find rules of how you move about on your scooter. But again, you saw them all on this. I'm like, that's multitasking, but it still scares me, you know, that people are able to do that. But that, again, I do think that this is a portal, whether we want to believe it or not, that it has a lot of value if you tap into it the right way. Any other comments? And thank you, all of you, for those comments. It's good to hear. I will relay it to Matt. He is disappointed he couldn't be here. He's still in the air, but he did have some commitments that he had to university. I'm not that high up in the University of Delaware, but there are some budget cuts that are, and he is instrumental in that, and they announced them today, and so I think he felt compelled to be there and let people know and have an ear to listen to. So, he does wish he could have been here, but he felt that he had to be there for his faculty. So, anything else that we're not done? Just so you know, I don't want anybody to think, man, because I do have clients where I used to absolutely believe that they couldn't wait for the wheels up on the plane for me to leave, because then they didn't have to do anything until the next time I landed. And that's not going to be this project, because we're going to keep it alive. We're going to keep it moving, whether we're here in the Maldives in person or whether we are via Zoom or on our phone. we really want to keep this moving because we have a window of opportunity with the president and with the sports minister with a timeline. Let's get this going. And we don't want that window to close because I don't think this opportunity will come around again. And so let's seize the opportunity. Let's move forward. And one of the terms I like to use is let's make the Maldives future ready, so that when you have more medals than you know what to do with here in the Maldives, you're ready for it. You're prepared. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. And as I said, I'm even more excited after a week here than I was when I landed. And I was pretty excited when I got here. So thank you.